My name is Marije. I would like to also congratulate Zita on her election yesterday, because I think it is really fantastic that you do it again. Now we're going to the panel on democracy and migration. So I have a few speakers I would like to invite to the stage. Elke Ferner from the SPD in Germany, Andreas Schieder from the SPA in Austria, Tanja Fajon from the SD in Slovenia, Fofi Genimata from PASOK Greece, Nils Usakovs from Latvia, Camila Garfias from Rainbow Rose, and Pedro Silva Pereira, Partido Socialista Portugal, and Tytti Tuppurainen from the SDP in Finland. Welcome.
Any sitting or just?
So, for the people in the back, it would be good if we could use the timer. So, we have quite a few speakers today, as you can see, and I recommend you to wear a headset, because we are going to speak different languages, and some of you might not understand, because it could be German or Greek or English. So we have Portuguese maybe even, so be prepared. Slovenian? No, not. Okay. So as you have seen, and also as Zita has indicated, we have 8 resolutions to discuss and adopt. We have been working for the last half year on all the preparation of the resolutions, and this panel we are going to highlight 2 of them. First one being migration, and the second one being the democracy resolution. We are at a very challenging time. I would say this will be historic European elections, because now it really comes to it. And one of the main themes we have to work around is to defend our democracy. As we know, it's under pressure, it's under threat, and since the last European elections in 2014, we've seen the rise of right-wing populist nationalist parties in many of our countries. Unfortunately, they're able to mobilize quite good, and so it means that we also have to be very good in mobilizing. But most of all, we need to convince people with a progressive agenda which is clear, strong, and recognizable. So I will not make a very long introduction, because then I'm wasting the time for the speakers. About migration, recently we were in Sweden, and our friends did a campaign over there. They did quite a good job in the elections, better than expected. And they told us migration is a very important issue. We need to have a position, but we cannot really win an election with this position. So because we have to go back and focus on the things we are really good at. Social justice, the environment, fight against tax evasion. But still we need to have it, and one thing became very clear in our debates, that migration needs to be orderly. And we need to have enough focus also on the human side. And I think that's well said. So, I'm going to introduce my panelists every time they speak, and they will speak between 3 and 5 minutes. There's a timer, and Stefan is in the back going to have the timer here on the stage. When time is up, we stop, and I will start intervening. The first speaker we have here is Elke Ferner. She is a member of the SPD in Germany. She's also member of the executive board of the PES Women, and she was elected again yesterday. Congratulations. Elke was also for a very long time the president of the women organization of the SPD in Germany. And she's been member of the parliament and Secretary of State Secretary at the Federal Ministry for Family Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women and Youth, and she's a true European. She has a house where she sometimes goes in Greece, and there I think also she can see with her own eyes what migration really means, and then of course go back home to Germany where you see the other side of migration. So I'm very happy to have you here, Elke. You're going to speak in German, and we will be straight, but the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marije. Thank you for having the opportunity to speak in this panel, but I will now switch to my mother tongue because, as all of us, I can express myself better in my mother tongue. Die sozialdemokratischen Parteien haben vor über 100 Jahren
Over 100 years ago, socialist parties were already fighting for justice. Now, at the time, the word used was fraternity, but today, of course, we also talk about our sisters, a sisterhood. All this to say that these socialist parties have always fought for democracy, and that fight has continued on more recently in many European countries today. And next year, we'll be celebrating the 100th anniversary of suffrage. That's the right of women to vote. So that's not so far back in history. Democracy, in fact, only goes back as far as men and women being recognized as equals. So we've not got a very long history there. Gender equality is a sine qua non condition to enable democracy. It's not the result of democracy. What unites us and also sets us apart from other political parties is that we clearly represent the idea that each and every one of us has the right to the same dignity, the same respect, and that we have the same right coming out of that. We can't be judged on our religion, culture, or tradition. So that's what our work is about now, with the elections coming up. Here's what we need to do. We need to focus on fundamental rights, which have a universal nature, and this is all the more important in a democracy, looking at how we behave towards minorities. What about minority rights? What about upholding their rights and respecting these minorities? Even if the majority makes the decisions, the rights of minorities must be respected and upheld. And populists and the far right are doing just the opposite of that. In all the member states of the European Union, we're looking at a situation where rights that were acquired on the basis of struggle are being called into question. Freedom of the press, the independence of the judiciary, and also the rights of women, all being called into question. I would never have imagined that we were in a situation where once again we would have to be fighting for the respect of these rights. Now, it's more than that for us. We want to push those rights forward. We want to get them to evolve. That's something we must bear in mind when looking ahead towards the elections. As socialists, as Democrats, we must defend these rights. These rights that were acquired based on our struggle, they must be defended. And the gaps that Zita mentioned must be bridged. Right up until 2030, we'll have to be reaching for the same aims. And, of course, sustainable development also comes into that. Right-wing forces and populists want to drive us back into the 50s and 60s, right back into the last century. They want to divide us. But what we need is more Europe, more solidarity, more cohesion, and more justice. And that means that we need more gender equality. But we also need a fair distribution of charges. Europe and our member states can only keep moving forward if we stick together. If we stick together when we're facing hard times. And indeed, the migration crisis showed us that these different costs and charges are not always distributed in a fair way. So, of course, it's also about respecting the human dignity of those who come to our shores. Something that really stuck out to me in a country which accepted a great deal of refugees is that there are women and children coming to us. There are members of the LGBTIQ community coming to us as well, and these are people who were threatened, who were not given a safe place to stay, who were not given safety. There are refugees, children who disappeared, women who refused to go to the toilet at night because they knew that they wouldn't be safe. This simply cannot happen in Europe. We must offer human rights, safe lodgings, safety, and ensure that their needs are provided for. Indeed, there is no doubt in my mind that our confrontation with conservatives and with the far right is a battle that we will win. There are many things that are currently being threatened. Europe, our future, and women in particular have a great deal to lose. So let's carry out a strong campaign, giving visibility to women, showcasing what we do, and really showing who is for gender equality, which is to say, our party, the European Socialists and Democrats. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Elke. I think you underlined very well the necessity for more solidarity and really to invest in people who are worse off, the most...
Peço desculpa. Eu agora queria passar a palavra a Andreas Schieder, que foi eleita Spitzenkandidat para a lista austríaca do SPÖ nas eleições europeias. Muitos parabéns pela sua eleição. E ele também, durante muito tempo, foi também líder do grupo parlamentar no Parlamento austríaco, muito ativo, um membro muito ativo do partido e antigo secretário de Estado das Finanças, se não estou errada, e acho que é fantástico que temos aqui pessoas como você ir para o Parlamento Europeu. Vão ser 5 anos muito difíceis com o crescimento da extrema-direita. Precisamos de representantes fortes para lutar contra tudo isto e para assegurarmos que podemos continuar a nossa luta por uma a Europa progressista. Vem da Áustria. O que é isso viver? Como é que é viver num país com um país populista muito forte? Como é que podemos gerir melhor estas situações? Tem 5 minutos máximo para falar. Muito obrigado, Marije. E peço desculpa, estou um bocado rouco, porque ontem à noite constipei-me um pouco, mas dois comentários. Perguntam sempre se estamos a favor ou contra a Europa, sim ou não. E isto não é a verdadeira questão que devemos fazer. A verdadeira questão que devemos fazer é que Europa defendemos e temos que dizer queremos uma Europa diferente. Se quisermos uma Europa, então queremos mudar a Europa, temos que mudar a Europa. Para combater a extrema-direita, não basta dizer estamos a favor da Europa. Temos que dizer temos que mudar a Europa, porque as democracias só são mais fortes quando existe uma segurança social forte. Sem segurança social forte, a democracia é forte. E é exatamente o que está a acontecer nas nossas sociedades. A extrema-direita, juntamente com os conservadores, estão a destruir a segurança social e, por conseguinte, também a democracia. E temos que estar cientes, mesmo quando os conservadores falam a favor da Europa e falam a favor da democracia, no final, eles vão fazer uma coligação com a extrema-direita para manterem o poder. É isso que aconteceu em Itália, foi o que aconteceu na Áustria, foi o que aconteceu, está a acontecer um pouco por todo lado e vai acontecer hoje também no Congresso da CDU. Temos que estar bem claros, só com nós, sociais-democratas, é que podemos ter democracia e progresso social. E esta também é a diferença. Porque é que não só somos democratas, somos também sociais-democratas. Eu acho que vale a pena lutar por estes objetivos. Muito obrigado por esta intervenção muito concisa e muito... Vamos ter também tempo para perguntas depois. Eu gostava agora de passar a palavra para Tanja Fajon. Tanja é vice-presidente do Grupo SD no Parlamento Europeu, é membro do Partido Social Democrático na Eslovénia e vai estar também muito bem colocada na lista. Precisamos de mulheres fortes. Eu peço desculpa, pode mudar de canal. Peço.
You are the chair of the migration network of the Party of European Socialists, so it was very nice to cooperate with you as well on a democracy resolution, and I would like to give the floor to you Maximum 5 minutes, shorter is always allowed.
Thank you. I hope that I can get 3 minutes of Andreas, but I will keep my time. So, first of all, as you touched on migration, as a spokesperson also of Socialists and Democrats in the group, I would like to say, dear friends, we have never had a migration crisis. Never had a migration crisis. We had a crisis of some of our European institutions and some of our European governments. And why am I saying that? Because in the European Parliament, we passed all the necessary legislation for common, efficient European asylum policy. Everything. Especially the Dublin reform, that is the major obstacle today to deal inside the European Union on the principle of solidarity or burden sharing. And it's the European governments today to blame that are not having this political will to really pass this necessary reform. And this is what we are Socialists and Democrats standing for. And I very much regret to see that in the past, through the migration challenges, we saw many of our political parties moving from left to dangerous right. And we have to be critical. What is important for us is we have human approach. We are talking about people in need. We are trying to really develop how to manage in an efficient way migration, and we need a European solution for that. And now coming to Marrakesh next week, I see there are some problems, and I see there are some governments withdrawing. And I have to say there is so much dangerous populism and lies and misinformation around us. It's a complete lie that there is any sort of obligation in this UN Global Compact, and we have to say no against that. It's about whether we will defend unilateralism or multilateralism. And this is on a high top priority agenda of Austrian presidency, the first country that withdrew. And I have to say, coming from the region, and I'm also a rapporteur on Schengen reform, where I see that a lot is at stake with Schengen, we are of course trying to build secure outside borders, but on the account, we don't have any balance on how to open safe and legal ways, how to deal more for people in need that are coming and get international protection in Europe, but we are focusing everything on security. And we are also destroying our values on that. Now, I'm coming back to Schengen because I find it very important. I care about security. Most of European citizens today care a lot about security. We care about job security, cultural security, any kind of security, not only building forces, fences and borders and so on. But today we have 6 countries in Schengen area that are prolonging interior border controls for more than 3 years. And now, as I am from Slovenia, it's a big frustration for me to explain to our citizens why do we have an internal border control. After 3 years, and the crisis was, or the biggest wave was in 2015, 20 million euro Austria is spending half a year for interior border control, and there were 10 irregular crossings. Can you imagine how much of this money can be spent for better purposes? And if we don't somehow raise our voice against that, we will lose confidence also, and the dangerous populists and nationalists will be winning on that. So when we talk as Socialists and Democrats on how to have a holistic approach to migration, I just came back from Niger. It's extremely important to mention we have to help in the development aid to Africa continent. We have to do, of course, more in the third countries where the sources of why people are fleeing to Europe. This is very important, and when it comes to UN Global Compact, we have to strongly support it. Only together, globally, we can address global challenges. No single country can address. If we step away from that, we are also undermining the European Union unity. And maybe that's I should conclude. I mean, there are so many things I wish to say, but we have to be proud with our values, and we have to raise voice for people today that are in need and defend European values, also when it comes to the question on migration or democracy or fundamental rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanja, for also underlining the necessity to really defend our values and to look further than only the European Union, but to also look at the global responsibility we, in a certain way, have, and looking also at the root causes and the inequality in the world. Thank you so much. Then I would like to give the floor to Fofi Genimata. She is the leader of the Pan-Hellenic Socialist Movement, PASOK, since 2015, and following the elections held in November 2017, she was elected leader of the new center-left political body in Greece, uniting movements and parties from a wider political perspective. I'm very happy to have you here. We've been working together a couple of times on the subject of migration, and you've even invited us to come host several conferences and also look at the situation on the spot in Greece. So it's an honor to have you here. The floor is yours, and I know you're going to speak in Greek. So.
Thank you so much. I will speak in Greek. Το μεταναστευτικό ζήτημα είναι το θέμα που κατεξοχήν εκμεταλλεύονται οι ακροδεξιοί, οι εθνικιστές και οι αντιευρωπαϊστές. Οι συντηρητικοί επενδύουν στο φόβο. Not yet? Is it okay now? Okay, I will start again. I'm sorry for the time. Το μεταναστευτικό είναι το ζήτημα που κατεξοχήν εκμεταλλεύονται οι ακροδεξιοί, οι εθνικιστές και οι αντιευρωπαϊστές. Οι συντηρητικοί επενδύουν στο φόβο. Οι ακροδεξιοί
people are actually betting on fear. The extreme right is also betting on hate. And solidarity is punished because of this. People that actually save lives end up being punished. We have, for instance, Orban on the one hand and Salvini on the other. Now, from our point of view, we want radical solutions. We want realistic solutions. This is what we must find. Of course, we're quite delayed. We need, actually, to do much more. Since 2015, we have improved, but not everywhere. And now I'd like to share with you my personal experience in Greece, because here as well, the government is in favor of a humane attitude, but in practice, despite the support from the European Union, there are several delays and there is no social support, and the consequences are tragic. I visited, for instance, Tralini, and I could actually witness the conditions in which people are living in. So children and women that are being mistreated. We cannot shut our eyes to this type of phenomenon. And the reality today is this is happening in Europe. It is urgent for us to do something. The question is exactly what can we do today? What should be done? Well, there are three different priorities. First of all, undoubtedly, we must conclude our reforms of Europe as being a political asylum. Of course, we need political will on behalf of the Council. We need solidarity from host countries. There was a common declaration from Turkey. And this declaration actually foresaw temporary measures. Now, these measures have been completely surpassed in practice. Equally, in the Aegean Sea, islands must be able to receive these people immediately. And of course, they just don't have the necessary infrastructures. So we must agree that member states that do not follow a logic of solidarity and shared distribution of the burden These member states cannot have the right to significant economic and financial funding. This cannot happen. Second of all, we must be aware that we need to protect our foreign external borders of Europe. They cannot be without control, specifically our maritime borders, because we cannot let people drown and we cannot allow people to continue dying and drowning. People must understand that there's another way. And this is why we need to reinforce, for instance, Coast Guard services. If this does not happen, then I would like you to know that at least with regards to the agency, then what we're going to be doing is we're giving the key directly to Turkey. And this, I can assure you, will create a very serious problem in Europe. We Europeans must arrive at the correct decisions. We must act with regards to migration in Europe. Besides this, the issue, for instance, of policies of adhesion, we must reflect on this particular matter. It no longer makes sense, and I'm underlining here social inclusion. Children, for instance, must learn the language in which they find themselves. There must be programs, there must be educational programs in order to certify the competencies of people that are arriving in the European Union. These people do not share the same competencies. We need scope, we need rules, and of course we need solidarity. This is the only way that we can actually oppose populism so that people may live in dignity in the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fofi, for your introduction. I think it's really interesting to hear from you because you are one of the countries where people really enter the European Union, and so I think it's been quite challenging, but I think you're really trying to do a good job. So thank you so much for enlightening us. Now I would like to give the floor to Nils Usakovs. He was elected chairman of the Riga Council in 2009, and before he had been an awarded journalist, I was told. Now he's the leader of Saskana, a party in Latvia, who just became a member today. So congratulations, we're happy to have you here on the panel. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marije, and thank you for your support for allowing us to join the family. Thank you. Elections 2019 will be really about the future of European continent. It will be a competition of different visions. One of the visions is European Union, European continent without borders, Europe of peace, prosperity and social justice. Another vision is Europe of Orban, Europe of Alternative for Deutschland, Swedish Democrats and Brexit. If we fail in 2019, Europe fails. Our dreams will fail. Dreams for the future of our children will fail. My son, he is 3.5. I don't really want him to live in Europe that will be designed by Orban or by Alternative for Deutschland. I have an honor to serve as a mayor for almost 10 years, and I love to talk about issues from the practical point of view. In 2019, we'll have lots of challenges, and I mean, we'll have to fight for our voters, who will be tempted by populists. We'll have to fight with extremely low activity, and probabilities that activity of voters for populists or nationalists will be higher than voters for the left ideas, I would say is pretty high. So in 2019, the challenges will be taking into account that we've got different level of successes at the national level. It will be difficult. And when we talk about 2019, our family has one asset. None other European parties can really count on mayors. Hundreds and hundreds of mayors running capitals, running large cities, running medium-sized cities, implementing progressive policies around Europe. And right now, what we really see is that Party of European Socialists, we do need support of mayors. Franz Timmermans needs support of mayors, and we all need it in 2019. That's why the idea to create the network for progressive mayors is really vital for the future of our family. And when we talk about the future, when we talk about the network, it's not only about 2019, it's about long run. It's about winning next year, and it's about implementing progressive policies and protecting our citizens. So that's why the idea to create this network, I would say, can really help us in 2019. And I will donate 2.5 minutes for the rest of the participants. Thank you, Marije.
Thank you, Nils, and welcome to the family. We know it's really important. We have been to Latvia with the PS presidency in June to support you in the run-up to the elections. And I think it's a fantastic idea to create this network of mayors, because local authorities are really the roots, I would say, make us rooted in society, and from the local level is the only way we can really make the changes. So thank you so much for your idea and for your energy, your new energy in this movement. Thank you. Then I would like to give the floor to Camila Garfias. She is the president of Rainbow Rose. I think... the new president, very new, and now already the most famous person, I think, in our panel. So that is, you know, a promising future ahead of you. So we're very happy to have you here. Camila is from Austria, and of course she is representing the European perspective. I'd also like to thank Rainbow Rose for the work done on the resolution on democracy, because there was a very good cooperation. There's quite a lot of sentences on LGBTIQ rights, because we believe this is a very important subject for us to fight for better rights, for equal rights for everybody, and to be inclusive. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I just think that I have most of the woo girls here and boys. Everything that we've heard so far and what you all have said applies for LGBTIQs exactly the same, but just more. We are workers, we are students, we are pensioners, we are everywhere in society. However, when it comes to cutting rights and when it comes to discrimination, the first that are hit are the LGBTIQs. So we do know what it means to fight for our rights, and we do know what it means to also make friends and make networks and stay stronger together to fight for equal rights. In the socialist and social democratic movement, we've always had a strong supporter. We are proud of being not just representing the LGBTQ community, but also representing the socialists. We stick to our ideas, and we will always do. That's why we will fight also in the European election to bring forward our political ideas. What is very important, though, in that aspect, and what has to be mentioned, is that the acceptance of LGBTQs in Europe is not as widespread as we might hope. So there are many countries, especially in the Western European countries, that have an approval of LGBTIQ rights above 8%. However, there are countries that have, in the Eastern European area especially, that have a disapproval of LGBTIQ rights of 80%. So that's a lot of work that we still have to do, and it's a lot of work that we as political party have to do, that we as parties in all of our countries have to do, to not just fight for equal rights of women and men, which is extremely important, and I totally agree with what Elke said. I think equality is the fundament of democracy, but that stands also true for the LGBTIQs. I think that we have to fight in every possible way, but that also means to allow LGBTQs to organize ourselves in our parties, that allows us to be represented and visible in election lists. So I'm quite happy that in Austria, actually, the list that was decided, there are at least 4 openly gay and lesbian, bisexual people on the list, and I'm very, very proud of that. I think this is really necessary for all of the countries in Europe. We have to speak out for LGBTIQ rights. During the election, we have to demand also from our leaders to stick to what they have promised, which is equal rights. And then when it comes to it, and when we have the chance, we really have to change politics, because I agree, it's not the question of whether we are pro-European or not. We are pro-European, of course, but we are for a Europe that stands for everyone. We are for a Europe that we can love, because it allows everyone to live and to be who he or she is, and to love whoever he or she wants to love, the way he or she thinks is the right way for them. That's the Europe we fight for, and that means that the European Union has to fully enforce freedom of movement, and not requiring individual court cases for LGBTIQs. That requires LGBT inclusive investment in youth and in education. And that also requires an EU directive on discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. I know that we as socialists must be and will be the only option for the 10 to 15% of the LGBTIQ voters in Europe, 10 to 15% of the electorate to the European Union, because we fight for a world where everyone can love and be whoever he or she wants. Thanks.
Thank you, Camila. So I think you're doing a great job, and I wish you a lot of courage to continue, because it's really, really important, and you can make the difference together with the people from Rainbow Rose. Count on our support for the next steps, and also for the European elections, for the campaign. Then I would like to go to a speaker from Portugal, Pedro Silva Pereira. He is Vice Chair of the Constitutional Affairs Committee of the European Parliament and Chairman of Respublica Foundation, which is a Portuguese socialist think tank, and also member of FEPS. He is a former minister of the presidency in charge of migration policy. I'm very happy to have you here in the panel. You're the pre-last speaker, so I hope you can give us a good and short intervention, and the floor is yours.
Okay, so I will do it in English to make things easier for most of you. I was asked to speak briefly on migration policy, and I would like to make 3 points. The first one is on the Portuguese migration policy, because I know you are all quite impressed with our progressive agenda regarding the fight against poverty and inequalities, the promotion of growth and job creation, the turn of the page of austerity, and sticking with our European commitments. But I think you should know something about the Portuguese progressive policy agenda. In fact, Portugal is a country of migrants, and in the last European barometer, 77% of the Portuguese expressed themselves in favor of the integration of migrants, and the average in the EU was 54%. Portugal is the second in the MIPEX, the most important ranking on integration of migrants. And while Europe was divided on migration, Portugal was adopting a citizenship law in 2006 and then again in 2018. And Portugal became the country where most European foreigners, well, the second one, where the most European foreigners living in our country get access to the citizenship. More than that, Portugal asked to receive more refugees than those foreseen in the quota, As you probably know, our comrade Antonio Vitorino is now in the lead of the International Organization for Migration, and the Secretary General of the United Nations, the former High Commissioner for Refugees, is now campaigning as Secretary General for a global pact for migration. So I think you have here a very inspiring progressive agenda also on migration policy. The second message I would like to deliver is on the resolution that we are about to vote, because I think this resolution answers the fundamental political question. And the question is it left turning right on migration? And the answer in this resolution, the answer of this Congress is no, clearly no. And I do hope we stick with that. On the contrary, we defend a positive vision on migration, humanist but also responsible, where we address the three pillars of an integrated approach. Cooperation with the countries of origin for development, addressing the root causes of migration, the promotion of channels for legal migration, and the fight against the trafficking of human beings, and finally also an additional investment in the integration of migrants and refugees in the host societies. This is our approach. And the final point I would like to make has to do with the political debate that we are going to face in the context of the next European elections. While we know that migration will be in the center of that debate, my message would be, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of defending our positive vision on migration, our humanist vision on migration. We must denounce the fact that the center-right is being captured by the discourse of the extreme right on migration. We must denounce that and present ourselves as different. And I'm not sure if we are going to win the elections, nobody is, but I would like to be sure that we are fighting on the right side, meaning that we explain to people that only with solidarity we can face our common problems. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Pedro. It's such a pleasure to be here in Portugal, because I think you are really doing great work here in this country, and you are an example to many of us. So I really like you talking about these progressive solutions and to have confidence in ourselves. And we hope we win. Even if we don't win, we should not jeopardize our own values. And I think it's very, very well said. Thank you so much. Then we go to the last speaker. So I promised you it's many speakers on the stage, but not a lot of time. But it was worth the wait for Tytti, because Tytti is a member of Parliament in Finland. She is a spokesperson on European affairs. She is leading the committee also on European affairs. She's been a member of the PS presidency for a long time. She's doing 1,000 things at the same time, I think, but always full of energy, dedication, and it's a pleasure to have you here. Tytti, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marije. Bom dia. Comrades, mass migration is not a European phenomenon. It is a global one. Refugee crises take place in many countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. But in Europe, there is no refugee crisis. Instead, comrades, we have a crisis of democracy and a crisis of human rights, crisis of consciousness. In Europe, economic uncertainties have created a breeding ground for extremist political ideologies. The arrival of asylum seekers, even in today's rather modest numbers, less than the population of my hometown Oulu in northern Finland, has given the extreme right a pretext to further their anti-democratic and inhumane ideas. The current political climate has a polarizing effect. Politicians and political parties are tempted to adopt viewpoints that are both simplistic and superficial, not the ones that are thoroughly thought. Fortunately, our democratic family has a secure foundation, giving us answers that are based on sound political analysis and at the same time are based on our lasting values. The draft resolutions puts it well. Our policies are guided by the international human rights, and we stand firmly for the right for asylum. Comrades, compromising our own values will only lead us to a slippery slope. The extreme right will always move the goalposts. If we accept the idea that new asylum seekers are denied the right to seek asylum within Europe, the debate will not be over. It will not stop there. It will move to a question of foreign-born people's right to stay in Europe or some other, even more extremist idea. We should not forget that the right to asylum is a very fundamental right, also in the sense that it is the foundation of many other human rights. For many millennia, the oppressed have always sought refuge and been given it. It is the human rights respected literally since the biblical times. If we compromise that, the slippery slope is in front of us in other human rights as well. The same right-wing extremists will also be against freedom of speech, LGBTIQ rights, and other fundamental rights. The erosion of the rule of law may start from the foreigners, but it does not stop there. The democracy, the very democracy, is in danger. Our goal, comrades, is an open society with orderly migration. Orderly migration requires combating human trafficking and speedy, efficient, and just asylum processes. Just as the United Nations Global Convention of Migration suggests. We support that, just as Udo Bullmann earlier stated here. We are for the multilateral solutions for orderly migration. Our draft resolution states it thus: we must create safe, orderly, and regular migration at our borders and ensure security. But, Marije, we must pay attention to the communities receiving immigrants. Mostly that, of course, attention focuses in the big cities that draw the most part of the migration. These cities must be protected from overt social and ethnic stratification. And also, smaller communities deserve our attention, and they need to be understood as well. They are challenges, they are different, but not impossible to overcome. As said earlier, it is the economic uncertainty and the feeling of being sidelined, left behind, that fosters extremism. But we can follow the guidelines from the United Nations Agenda 2030, leave no one behind. So we have the future, and the future will be ours. I'm optimistic, I'm positive the Social Democrats will save the Europe, and we will save the human rights.
Thank you so much, Tytti. And I'm very proud to be part of this movement where we have more that unites us than divides us. And I think we have even, hearing from the south, from the east, from the north, and from the west, we have so much in common. And I'm very happy to have you here. And also thank you so much for your work done on the resolutions, because this is really highly valued. I would also like to thank all the other parties being involved, because it's been fantastic work to do this, and thanks also to the teams that have been preparing this together with us. I have one speaker's request to take the floor from SAP in Sweden, Evin Insier, and I would like to invite you to come down. You are going to, okay, come on the stage, please. We don't have time for debate, but I had promised to give you the SAP the floor.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Kenneth Forslund, representing the Swedish Social Democratic Workers' Party. First of all, thank you to all of you in the panel for interesting perspective and reflections. This is really one of the most important issues to Europe at this very moment, and it will definitely, as it was said, be one of the main issues in the upcoming election campaign. This is, to all of us, a common challenge where we have to seek common solutions, common social democratic solutions, but we also have to be honest and see the whole complete picture. There are three main issues of this. We have to fight the root causes, we have to strengthen our borders, we have to have a common asylum system. And these three together can create a sustainable and fair migration policy in Europe, and something that we all could benefit from. A fight on the root causes, that basically and hopefully people shouldn't even have to flee out of different reasons from their origin. To tackle the problems of economic migration, and to actually give people a secure future back home, and do that by promoting trade, development and education. To strengthen our borders, safeguard free movement within the EU, but also fight the terrible human traffickers. And we have to save lives at sea. That is of great importance. With a common asylum system, all countries must take a responsibility for those who come to our continent, to our countries. We have to have common rules, and we have to honestly mean that a yes means yes and a no means no. If you get the yes answer, that should be also a promise for integration. A no should mean a start of a safe return. And this is what we reflect in our, in our reservation that we have put in for this conference and for this resolution. Thank you very much. And I would want to end up with a question, if the panel or someone would want to, or have the possibility to pick up on it. How do you think we could create this common asylum system? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you also for your clarification. I think it's a good point, a very good question. To be honest, we could speak about it for hours. We will organize some migration network meetings where we will discuss the matter again, but we will not do it today because I've been told by the Congress chairs that we have to end this debate here because there's 2 other debates waiting. I would really like to thank all the speakers here. We will vote on the resolutions later on, but please, thank you so much, and let's have a great Congress and let's adopt these resolutions. Thanks.